Still working to put out fires that have already destroyed significant parts of Jasper, Alberta. It changed quickly Monday night. Strong winds pushed fires from the outskirts of Jasper to within a few kilometers of town.
Warm temperatures and low humidity pushing the flames on top of the community of Kelly Lake.
Bomb the fire.
Choppers bucketing in people's backyards. The Kiskatna fire has grown to roughly 110 square kilometers, forcing dozens of people from their homes along the BC-Alberta border. So far, none of the structures in Kelly Lake have been damaged, but a shift in the wind expected Friday could put the community in further danger. Other fires along the Alaska Highway have prompted more evacuation alerts. Officials say the situation remains highly volatile.
Continuing to follow breaking news in Hawaii right now, at least 1,000 people are still missing as the deadly wildfires burn.
New video from overnight shows night flying helicopters and hundreds of firefighters working through the night to contain the flames. The Wolf Fire now burning over 1,100 acres. CAL FIRE reporting the fire is burning.
Some scary moments for families in the San Bernardino Mountains. The Lake Fire. This one broke out Saturday afternoon north of Crestline and Lake Arrowhead. While evacuations are no longer in effect, this fire did catch a lot of people vacationing near Silverwood Lake off guard.
We're telling everybody there's no exit. We are stuck in this.
We always encourage people, don't write it off. Don't ignore it because you don't know what else is going on. I'm just going to pretend it's not there or whatever, and kind of go. And that complacency, that drive to kind of ignore it, could at one time you could be ignoring an actual event. We don't care if it's 2 in the morning, if it's 2 in the afternoon. This is our job. We're here there. We would rather have everybody outside safe and us come in.
Welcome to ASA Podcast. Today's episode brings you the very front line of danger, leadership and courage as we sit down with Woodstock's very own Fire Chief Jeff Slager, who has nearly 30 years of boots-on-ground experience and a deep commitment to the safety of hometown and evolving fire services.
Thank you so much, Fire Chief Woodstock, for being a part of the ASA podcast today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah. Very lately, a lot of fire we are hearing about, around the world, especially in North America. Say it could be wildfire in California, maybe in Alberta. Even one was in Ottawa.
Yes.
All right, and the fire is getting deadlier.
We are seeing a lot an increase in our wildland fires. You are seeing that through in a lot of the population or the areas where there is a predominantly large wildland area there, and they are racing through. And the challenges that they're facing is they get a head of steam, or they're building up quite large as they're approaching the urban areas. So by the time they reach an urban area, they're already quite large and established, and it's hard to beat that back or to stop that and prevent it from coming into our urban centers. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the loss of residences and such like that, because, as I said, an established fire is coming in rather than it just getting going, and an urban fire department's able to address that. We're a bit fortunate here within the city of Woodstock in the sense that while we do have a lot of green area around us, we do have woodlots both within the area through Upper Thames Conservation Authority and in other areas of the city, that at the present time, we haven't had too much of a concern for our wildland fire potentials. However, it's always, it's always there. We do have significant woodlots close to residential areas that could impact that. So we are monitoring it and keeping tabs on what goes on. One of the benefits, I guess, if you can call it that, for us here in the city of Woodstock is with a lot of these woodlotted areas being within the city of Woodstock, we have municipal hydrants that are close by. So we have a quick access to a continuous supply of water for us to be able to address them if we need to. There are some areas that are in slightly rural zones that are still in the city of Woodstock that might not have hydrants yet. However, they are in the process of obtaining them. And for those, we have a automatic aid agreement with our neighboring fire departments for them to be able to provide tankers, which is a water source for us to be able to draw on and go from there. So while we haven't had to face it directly yet, and we are seeing it increase, so it is something that remains on the radar, I feel that we are in a position right now that if we do have to, we have resources in place and we have processes in place that we're prepared to start the initial connection or start the initial attack and proceed with what we can have. Unfortunately, with any wildland fires, it is predictable. It's nature. We can't control that completely, no matter how well we feel that we are prepared. So weather can change anything in a heartbeat, but we like to think that we're as ready as we can be for the uncontrollable.
Yeah, well, the changes or the new construction materials that are being used in the modern homes. Is this anywhere having any any changes or advancement in not to get into a fire incident, or is it the otherwise?
So we've seen some significant changes that have impacted the way fires are affecting houses, like with new builds. Probably two of the largest changes that we've seen has been the open concept format with houses. Whereas, a number of years ago when, heating maybe wasn't as good as it was before, the rooms were smaller, they were kind of a bit more blocked off, so you were only heating the rooms that you were using. They were much smaller. So the benefit of those was if a fire started in a room, it stayed somewhat smaller or stayed within that space before it spread to the rest of the house. Nowadays, we're more engaged with our main floor. It's more common to see come into a home and on the main floor, it is open concept right from the kitchen, dining, living room area, so that when we are entertaining or with our family, we can connect and visualize. The challenge for us with that is if a fire gets going in any of those areas, it spreads through the main floor of the house extremely quickly. And if it is a multi-story home, while the stairwell isn't separated off, it immediately goes up to the second floor with that. So the spread of fire is actually able to move quickly or quicker through the home with an open concept house. Now, we're not trying to say, don't do this, don't that type of thing. Your homes are. It impacts because that speed it can travel a lot quicker. It highlights the need for early detection equipment to be in there, smoke alarms and that, which we can talk about in a little bit. But so ensuring that they're there. So that's one aspect of a large change that we've seen over the past couple of decades. It's more and more often. It's less likely that you're going to see houses built now that aren't open concept on the first floor. In a more recent-ish sort of vein, comes to, and I don't want to kind of give this sense of when I'm talking about these that houses built with these are unsafe. So I am giving that caveat. Yeah. It's just it's a difference in how they're constructed and how they respond when they're under on fire. It's the engineered floor joists. So when we're talking about houses that were built a number of years ago, the floor joists were solid 2x10s, 2x12s sides. It was a solid piece of wood. Now, as time has moved on, they've gone to engineered, for lack of it's a wooden I-beam of a sort. So they're sound. They're designed to be able to withstand the construction of the home, all the weight. So if your house is built with them, you're still in a safe house. It's not going to collapse on you. The challenge we have with that is when they catch fire, it's less material that's there, that when the fire gets to that, the fuel source for it, there's less. So it actually eats through those a lot quicker than it would an old 2x12 or 2x10 material, which helps dissipate the heat. And they're actually hard to get burning. So what that winds up leading to is not necessarily for the residents who need to get out. It's not going to be that suddenly your floor is gone while you're trying to evacuate. It's when my crew arrive and we're going into homes to either look for those who might be trapped on a second floor or to extinguish the fire. We have to be aware of houses that are built with that type of floor joist because the floors might not be there when we walk in, whereas houses that were built 30, 40 years ago with a standard joist, we have a little bit more confidence that the joist can be there. It's not a black and white that they're going to be, all the time, but it is something that we have to be made aware of from a response standpoint. So your houses are still safe if they're constructed with. It's just additional items that we have to be aware of when we're doing response.
So based on the design changes compared to the past, how do you think that people from Woodstock, basically Canadians, should adapt to that, to the new design? Is there anything that they need to consider?
So some of the aspects you can look at now, when we're looking with the I-beam, so I'll just because we just finished with that, the engineered floor joists, they're on each floor of your house. Now, you're probably only going to see them if you go into the basement and you've got an unfinished basement because there's no ceiling there. It's unfinished. You see that. On your first floor, between your first and second, you've got drywall that's there. So you're not going to see the joists. Standard drywall doesn't offer a huge amount of protection, but it does offer a little bit of fire resistance before the fire is going to penetrate through that to get to there. So some of the aspects of it, and unfortunately does add a bit of cost. An immediate thing could be, if it is a concern, basements that are finished or that have a drywalled ceiling that kind of sandwiches that engineered floor joist allows a little bit more time before the fire is directly impacting the floor joist. Now, again, I'm not saying that they should all be drywalled. These are just some of the concepts that can go through there. Additional early detection devices, smoke alarms, interconnected smoke alarms. All houses have to have them now. In a basement that's unfinished, if that's all that's down there under the code, there only needs to be a single smoke alarm down there. Now, if you've got a largish basement, or sometimes not even a largish one, it has to wait for the fire to get going and for smoke to be able to reach it before it goes off. It may be that you look at adding additional smoke alarms interconnected through, spread out a little bit more so that if something gets going in an area furthest away from where the single one is, you have an earlier notification and ability to let the fire department come through for that. The final item, and this has been a stickler, it's a hard one to get through, but it's big, is residential sprinklers. Now, having a sprinkler system within your home, a lot of people, there's a lot of unknowns about them for people. We go by what we see on TV, where the hero of a movie is holding a lighter underneath the one sprinkler head, it goes off and the entire floor goes. That's not how they work. They go off one at a time because they have a glass bulb in them that reacts to the heat. When it breaks, the water just comes out of the one. With residential, if you add that to your home, we recognize that it comes with a maintenance cost every year that you have to maintain the systems, but it does provide additional protection there. They're designed to prevent a fire from spreading or growing, but the majority of time with a simple fire, they actually put them out and prevent it from leaving the area of origin and minimize the flow of water. We come in with a big hose line, we're spraying huge amounts of water. Yeah. A sprinkler head gives off a very little bit compared to what we have, but that can come through. So those would probably be the three main aspects of what I'd look at, that for newer construction homes, or if people have a concern, things to look at or to add into their either constructions.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do notice, or we do have some sprinklers, usually in condos or apartments.
Yes.
Right? They come with default by design, I would say. But do you think will it be a good practice to have sprinklers in a detached home, semi-detached, like normal individual houses too?
So as the fire service, yes, that is something that we are behind. It does provide a much better protection. When we look at areas, there are some municipalities that have required them. I believe Vancouver was in British Columbia was one of the first ones that required residential sprinklers in new construction. It's been there for a number of years. One of the great statistics that they have, and I don't believe it's changed. It's been a little bit since I've read into it, so don't quote me on it from the 2025 that's saying, but one of the great statistics that they've had, there has not been a fatality in a residential home in Vancouver that had a sprinkler system in there.
Wow.
There's been fires, but there has not been a fatality caused by the fire in a home that's had a residential sprinkler in that location there. So there are some definite benefits from it. It gives the occupants time to be able to respond and remove themselves from a fire. It gives the fire service longer time to be able to respond and potentially deal with a much smaller fire scene.
It comes with a cost too, right?
Unfortunately, there is cost with anything, and as we're seeing, the cost of construction does continue to climb up. So initial construction, I'm not sure what the standard setup was. When we first started having the conversation of this, and this is like, we're talking 15, 20 years ago, at the time of construction, they said it was about $1 a square foot to add a residential sprinkler in for the initial construction time. If you were retrofitting it, so adding it to a house that was already built, you were at about $1.80 a square foot, so it was a little bit more. Those are old numbers. That, again, was back in a time when you could buy a house for $250,000 that you could support a family with. So the construction cost has gone up, but when we look at what the benefits are there of minimizing the potential loss of it, you will be, if you have a fire, potentially replacing less of your home. There are some potential benefits underneath within your insurances. Reach out to your insurance companies if it's something you're considering to find out what their reductions are or what the benefits they have with that, and go from there. And then ultimately, the priceless point of it is the loss of life. You're greatly reducing the potential that could impact somebody there.
So now with the significant change in the climate or the drought condition,
yes,
or the deadly wildfire we see around the North America, is there anywhere near Woodstock and around we can expect an aggressive wildfire based on the monitoring that is happening?
Anywhere that has a woodlot is a potential when we look at for long-term effects of the weather of the time and the changes in the climate. Because we do recognize climate change and weather are two different things when we're looking at it here. So we do have some significant woodlots. We are in a beautiful area of the county of Oxford County in here. Significant treed area. It's one of the big resources that our Parks Department looks after and maintains. That we've got that, but there is the challenges there. So it is something that we're aware of. We have to be cognizant of. We do try to monitor that, and as I said a bit earlier, when we look at it, is we feel we're prepared, but you can't ever be 100% prepared for everything. So when we look at the partners that maintain it, Upper Thames UTRCA, they look after certain woodlot areas. Our Parks and Recs Department, they look after it. They're doing what they can to maintain, to remove dead wood, to look after the resources the best they can, to hopefully minimize the potential impact that can be there. But as I said, things that are impacted by weather or nature, we can't control, so we do what we can for that. We'd like to feel that we're prepared.
Which is good, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
As best can be. It still comes down to the human element that could be involved in any ignition sources or starting up. To be aware, be respectful, and know that unfortunately sometimes people will go into areas and, well, I'm just having a small campfire. I've got it controlled. I'm keeping it small.
Mm-hmm.
Embers from wood, sparks going off. It can just be a very small ember at a very high heat and it landing in a pile of extremely dry needles and that's all it takes to get going. Wildland fires can start very quickly and they can be very deep rooted, and you think they're out and they're not. They're in the underbrush and away they go. So the easiest thing here is the elements that we can control, let's control them. So respect if we're in a dry area. Check the area. Don't have campfires when you're surrounded by trees, these type of things. Minimize the human impact on that. That helps prevent us, helps us in the response, but also helps the houses that are at the other end of that woodlot not having to worry about what's happening.
Mostly like the homeowners, if they have failed to perform a maintenance or any maintenance lapse, did that ever contributed for a fatal, a fire at, locally in and around, like in Woodstock?
Yeah. So again, if the homeowners in that, look after your own areas. You know what's around you. If you've got concerns that are there, if you have lots that are on your property, that a lot of our, maybe in our rural areas, the farmlands that will have woodlots on there, they tend to be surrounded by open area for the farmland, but there's still the potential in a fall, things are dried out and going with respect to that. Be aware of what's there. Look after the significant, what you can control. Areas that are beyond your control, maybe reach out to the organizations that can deal with those if you have concerns about something, and ask for the assistance there.
What other various types of advice or tips that you can provide to homeowners to make sure they can prevent from having a fire
within your own home? So the main topics that we tend to look at, kind of our educational aspects of it, is it's always depends on the time of year that we look at. So when we're in holiday times, when people are all getting together and our houses are a bit busier, we're cooking a lot more. We've got friends, family, we're socializing. We tend to sometimes we forget to watch what we're cooking and be aware of what's going on. Like kitchen fires are a big start in our holiday periods, and as we have many different vacation or many different holidays that are recognized through different cultures throughout the year, we can't just say it's one time of the year, but we look at, be aware of what you have. Don't get too drawn away by your socializing that you're not watching what's being on your stove, crock pots, or whatever it happens to be going. Because again, when we couple that, something get going in that, coupled with our open concept houses, a kitchen fire can become devastating extremely quickly. So monitor things, be prepared to respond with a kitchen fire. If you've got an extinguisher, a small extinguisher to be able to address, if a pot catches fire of oil, or know how to respond to them, please do not pick up a pot that's on fire and try to walk it outside because you're going to splash oil everywhere. Do you have a lid there to be able to slide over if it's safe? Do what you can immediately, or if you're not comfortable, get you and your family outside. So doing that, the next stage of getting your family outside kind of leads to the next thing. It's plan and practice a fire escape route. If something happens in our home, how are we getting out from the second floor in the middle of the night while we're sleeping? What are we doing? People who have children that are young, how are we encouraging or teaching them what they're supposed to do? How am I looking after my infants who can't look after themselves? How are we looking after our seniors who may be staying with us and aren't as quick to respond? That type of thing. By having a plan and practicing it, that can help kind of minimize things there. The number one safety thing that we're always going to push, and I have mentioned, is make sure you have working smoke alarms in your home. Having that, the early detection, working on every level. New houses in construction now have to have them in the bedrooms now as well. Make sure they work, they're tested, and they're going. That's going to be the number one thing to keep your family safe.
You are born in Woodstock.
Yes.
And you are in fire service for 30 years.
Yes.
So out of your 30 years of service in Woodstock, locally, you might have seen many events. Some may be false alarms, some may be real events, right? Different kinds of scenarios, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Out of all those scenarios, which one is the main reason that you got called for?
So we have a broad range. If you look at, we do provide our call statistics on an annual basis. We can see what we go through. False alarm calls tend to be probably among our larger portion next to medical responses. They're continuing to grow as our community continues to grow with respect to there. But motor vehicle collisions are a big thing. As our community is growing, we have a lot more activity within. What we're finding is there are more people staying in the community, driving around during the day rather than leaving the community to go to work. We've had some significant growth in our industry and commercial and that keep there. So more people, more traffic, more incidents that come from there. So there hasn't been one specific area that I would say has been a specific growth. We're seeing it all because our community continues to grow as a whole across the board.
So generally people think, okay, this is a false alarm. We don't have fire now, right?
Yes.
There's no fire incident and whatever. People may think that's a false alarm, but we cannot rule out the possibility of CO, carbon monoxide, right?
Correct. So when you're looking at a false alarm, we always encourage people, don't write it off. Don't ignore it because you don't know what else is going on. It may be that, well, that smoke alarm always goes off. It's always a false. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. Well, whatever, and kind of go. And that complacency, that drive to kind of ignore it, could at one time you could be ignoring an actual event type of thing that's going on there. Now, with the devices that some are both a smoke alarm and a carbon monoxide alarm, understanding what the difference is, because it may be that one alarm keeps going off because it's for whatever reason you ignore it, but this alarm is a little different because it's carbon monoxide, and you just think, well, it's just the smoke alarm going off. Know what they are. Understand that, but treat them with respect and come out. We, as a fire service, would rather show up to your house for a false alarm. We don't care if it's 2 a.m, if it's 2 p.m. This is our job. We're here there. We would rather have everybody outside safe and us come in and verify that it's a false alarm. There is no smoke. There's nothing going on in the walls. There is no carbon monoxide. We would rather do that and you're able to go back into your home safely than for something to be ignored and it wind up being it is carbon monoxide and you're not able to respond to it, or there is something going on in a wall and it's now become a bigger issue and maybe prevents somebody from getting out. So take them seriously. Call us. We don't charge people for a false alarm. There is a bylaw that if it's at the third or fourth time for the same thing, but we've worked with you by that point to see what else is going on. For a first time, let us be there. Let us make sure that you're safe. Give you the peace of mind that your house is safe for you and your family. And then we go back and do our job and you're able to go back and do yours and enjoy your life. So
you already touched on the point of rehearsing. We do practice that in the industries,
yes,
manufacturing facilities and wherever, right?
Yeah, that always happen in any industry, right? The fire drill, they make
drill.
make everyone to panic, start walking, go, just, it's not pretending, they make it is happening,
Yes.
like a real-time incident. But once all the drill is over, that's when they will come, they will announce that this is a fire drill.
Yes.
We just wanted to make sure, or they really wanted to make sure that the steps that were supposed to be followed in a case of a real emergency, do we have everything working fine, or is there need of any improvement, were they able to meet the kind of criteria, or might be how fast they can come out of the building to a safer zone. That still happens in the workplace, I think.
Correct,
Ashok
yes.
is trying to ask, is
Yes.
a very similar drill will also happen in when at the workplace.
My question would be like, who should take responsibility for that? That should be the local politicians, or should the fire department encourage people to do that individually?
So you're talking in the homes, like people are kind of so
let's say for this community.
Yeah. So when you're talking about, so in the apartment buildings and industry and such like that, the fire code requires them to test their alarm systems on a monthly basis to make sure so that they're following the law, like the fire code, and the fire drills are required. So when we're talking an apartment building, it's full of individual residences. So the owners of the building are required to make sure that the systems that are shared amongst everybody are working and functioning. And they have to have a fire safety plan in place that they notify all the residents of, this is what you should do in the event of emergency. This is what you they can't force you to, but they are required by law to have that plan in place. So sometimes people think, well, in an apartment building, yes, I'm made to do that there, but when I move to my detached home and I'm living on my own, why am I not made to do that? It's one of those areas where the fire code doesn't require it for those that are in a single family home or a detached, like when you're not in a large apartment building, a multi-unit. But we do put out the information, the education. We strongly encourage it for the same reasons. So we try to put out that educational information as much as we can. I think it would be a bit of a challenge for single family homes or individual residents to require it in a legal process that thou shalt have this plan, because then we have over 16,000 individual houses here in the city of Woodstock. For us to enforce that and go to each house and verify that they have a fire safety plan in place and an evacuation plan, that's a bit prohibitive to do. So we are able to do the education and implement it. You're in charge of what happens within your walls. So we educate there. I think I like where you're going with it, as you said, about having more people involved in the encouragement of it. I think moving it to a law of saying, no, thou shalt, or getting the politician at a political level of having it move to that could be a little bit more of a challenge. That's through there. We can test smoke alarms. We can know whether you have them if we come in after the fact, because it's a physical device that's there. It's kind of hard to say, well, do you have a plan? Do you have, what's the process there for individuals? So I can't see it moving to a law. I can't see it moving through being a legal requirement. But avenues like this with your podcasts that we have here are part of an opportunity for us to continue to educate, saying, please do it. You've been doing it in your workplace. You've done it in apartment buildings where you're at. Use that as the framework to practice that for your own home, because the same thing that you're doing at work, getting everybody out safely and knowing they're all, apply that to the house, because you want everybody there to be out safe. And if you've got questions, reach out to your local fire department. We are happy to help out. We have divisions, our public educators. This is all what they do, is they provide that information and be able to provide that assistance in putting a safety plan together for you. So I would love to make it thou shalt, but at the same time, I know I don't have the resources to make sure everybody does. So we'll do the next best thing and educate the heck out of people on you need to do it. Yeah. Thank you for that question. That's great.
Yeah. On a continued note, there are many places where they still do a fire drill.
Yes. Yeah.
Does the fire station have a fire drill, or if they have to, out of their busy, you never know when you get a call, right? To help people on a fire accident, or it could be a false alarm. So does there a chance? The fire department really get a chance to do a fire drill, or does it come out of a typical on the job kind of when they get a call, and know how the metrics were being calculated.
Okay, so are you saying like us having our own fire drills, like practice with them?
Exactly.
So the law, the way it's set up, the requirements for the regular fire drill and the fire safety plan, they are detailed based on the size, what the occupant load is in. So some smaller offices may not be required to have it. There's a certain number of people that have to be operating within that. With us, like our building is alarmed. We go through that. We know how we're responding. We don't necessarily do an evacuation drill because it's latent and it's what all of our staff are trained to be able to teach as well as perform. But we're still part of the requirement. We have to test our alarm once a month, set it off and ring it and that type of thing. So it's one of those aspects that we practice what we preach in a degree as to what's required. It is very much, if our alarms go off, we know what we're doing. We're on our way out and go from there. So yeah, we're ready. We're set.
When you said there were plenty of, like most of the calls might be a false alarm, right? And I know the response time will be really high to reach the place from where they call to go and take immediate action. When you happen to see it's a false alarm, what would be your there would be a mental preparation on how to handle that that situation while you might be on the way to that specific destination. But once you go and see it is a false alarm, how that would feel for the firefighters?
So it's a mix of things. As you said, when the call goes off, we don't know what the end result is. It comes in an alarm sounding. That could be any number of things, anything from a false alarm to an actual call. So yes, as you identified, our firefighters are in the mental process of getting ready for whatever they could potentially deal with because it's an unknown. So when we get there and we find out it is a false alarm, in some cases there is a bit of relief. We look at somebody's not losing something today. We're not potentially putting ourselves at risk of having to address something, and we go from there. We try very hard not to feel complacent about it it's just another false alarm. If we don't want it to be that we step back our preparedness so that anytime we go, it's that same, we were just there and it was an alarm, so we're not as mentally prepared for that. So while there is some relief of what we're doing, we're prepared for the next call of what we have to go for anything with that. Now, if we do have facilities that we have multiple where unfortunately, sometimes maybe there's a failure of the alarm system where there could be, we might be there on a daily basis for a couple of periods. It's the same thing. Our prevention team comes in and starts working with the property owners of, we need to correct this because if it is in a location that's a known false alarm, we are screaming across town in a fire truck to come here that if it's a false alarm but there was an actual call somewhere else, you've taken our resources that could have been used at an actual call for a known potential false alarm. So we have to balance that out there too. So we work with the companies to try to, how can we fix this? How can we make it so that it's not going to be a false alarm so that we don't start to, we've been there already. Yeah. We don't want to get to that because that's when we get hurt if we're not prepared when we arrive mentally.
Let's take the city of Woodstock itself, right? Was there any event in the past, or I would say, if there is a real event, what kind of risk that you are expecting to go into, or a risky situation that you are going to enter into, and what kind of physical injuries do you think you expect at least, or be prepared
to be faced?
Yeah.
So when we do go through, when we arrive, our initial preparation is we look at, okay, what are the potentials for injuries to individuals that are already impacted. So when we arrive at a home, a business, or whatnot, if it's an actual event, an actual fire, our first priority is trying to find out, okay, what are the challenges that we could be faced by the individuals that could be trapped in? Because we know as the fire grows, the environment inside is going to change to extreme heat. Thousands of, it's hot. You don't want to be in there. So we know that the time for being able to rescue somebody or get them out of that environment is very short. So we do look at what the potential injuries there are, for smoke inhalation and the time frame to be able to address them is extremely limited to get through with that. That's kind of a standard that we have of what we're preparing for. One of the aspects sometimes people forget with these responses is that no matter how well we're trained, how much equipment and the right equipment that we have there, the risks to the firefighters going in and responding to this call, what they take. We are dealing with a situation that is uncontrollable. We try to control the uncontrollable as much as we can, but they're taking great risks that are there. So when we go in, even before we start going into this, heated environment, extreme heated environment, we have to realize that these firefighters are already wearing anywhere from 75 to 90 pounds of equipment on their body, on top of their normal weight that they're carrying. And these are fit people. And the gear that we're wearing, the bunker gear, it's designed that it won't allow steam to come through, because we can't, if we're spraying water and it's on heat, we can't allow steam burns to come in. Well, if it's not letting steam come in, it's not going to let your sweat go out. So we're not able to cool down inside the gear. So you are already sweating before you've started because you have this gear on. You look at, City of Woodstock has gone through a heat wave recently, feeling like, felt like 44 degrees. Mm-hmm. We have firefighters that are wearing gear that's going to make that feel even hotter. So we have to be aware of what their core temperature, what they're experiencing even before starting. So their personal biometric health is an initial potential injury that's right off the bat. Then when they go into a facility or into an area, it's blackout. They have no idea what they're walking into. And this is where I like to kind of give the plug. I love Hollywood. I love movies, love TV, enjoy that. But they're paying a lot of money to the actors, so you have to be able to see the actors when they go in. Forget anything you've ever seen. You go into a fire scene in an actual one, it's black. It's dark. Close your eyes. That's what our firefighters are seeing when they go in. So they're at risk of a number of things, aside from just the heat. Holes in the floor. We talked about the construction of facility, how long the fire's been burning. Things could have disappeared. They're crawling along. Suddenly the floor is not there. Material falling on them. The increasing of the heat. As a fire builds, we have a situation or a phenomenon called flashover, which is as the room or the environment gets to a temperature where it reaches the ignition temperature of everything in the room. So fire could be rolling across the ceiling because of all the gases that are there, but it could be hot enough at the ground level that the chairs, the furniture at ground level is where it could ignite. It's giving off gases to kind of start. Within that moment, flashover happens. Everything in the room catches fire because it's got the fuel, it's got the heat, and it's got the oxygen. Fire doesn't have to touch it. It gets going. So the firefighters are at risk of being trapped in that type of environment where firefighters who are caught in that are very unlikely to survive because if everything's on fire, it catches them too. So they have to be aware of what's happening around them in a dark environment and go from that. Materials falling. We have had situations where firefighters have been struck by materials coming out from it. So again, these are multiple different risks or hazards that they could be facing in addition to the impact that the fire is causing it. There have been a number of unfortunate losses where the integrity of a structure has failed while firefighters were inside and a building has collapsed or a ceiling has collapsed on the individuals. Again, we are trying to control the uncontrollable, and these are firefighters who are making that decision that first they're going to take this role, they're going to put themselves in that position, and they're doing what they can in the training, and we have that in line to protect them as much as we can, but that only goes so far. So it is a great risk to them when they're going in these environments, and there's a number of hazards that they could be facing with respect to that.
You mentioned that you are entering into a dark situation where, like, you compared basically real life situation with a Hollywood and whatever, and Hollywood is nowhere close, whatever, right? So, is there any real life event that you faced the same, or you were in the same situation, like entering into a pitch black room with?
I harken back to when I started one of the first residential fires that I went to. Where I was tasked with going in with a suppression line. So as a junior firefighter, we always send, if people are going in with a hose line, there's always minimum of two. So I was with a senior firefighter who was on the nozzle. I was behind. We got into the facility, into the residence. We're crawling. Once we got crawled in, Now, his backside, because we're crawling, was less than 12 inches away from my face, my eyes. It was so black, if I didn't have a hand on him, I wouldn't have known he was there, and he was 12 inches apart from me. It is that black and that dark in these situations. So that was my first kick at the can, I guess you could say, my first personal experience with that. And it's a bit shocking sometimes when people don't realize that when they go into these locations, of realizing that I've got somebody, or how close I could be to holes in the ground. So when we are hearing things where a firefighter has fallen through something, or a firefighter, people tend to, unfortunately, we go back to what we've seen on TV. Well, why couldn't they have seen that? Because we can't see anything. We are doing the best that we can with the training we have, and we train for those scenarios. But we have to be aware that you want to know what it is, go into a room with your eyes closed and try to find your way around.
But should you always need to crawl while entering into any residence, or is that because of because of that situation?
So with that, when we're going into a situation, we stay low, because as the fire's building, the superheated gases are at head level. So when we talk like a residence, where 8-foot ceilings is a standard that's there. If a fire's already going to the point that with suppression, it's a lot hotter. When you're in the 6 to 8 foot range there, and firefighters are 5.5 to 6.5 feet. We tend to be in that range. That's where your brain is. We don't want the thinker in the superheated area being impacted by that. So by us being on our hands and knees, we're at the coolest area of the location of the structure or the facility that we're dealing with. The other unfortunate thing that we deal is if we're looking for or searching for people who are trapped, chances are that they're unconscious. That's where they're going to be, is on that level. We can check couch tops, we can check beds from that there. And it's also, when it does come to floors missing or holes in the floor, when you're walking, you've only got 1 foot on the floor. And if you step into an open area, you're gone. Yeah. Whereas if you're crawling, we tend to be going a little slower. We have 3 points of contact with the ground as you're searching in front. So there is a little bit more safety to the firefighter as they're going through that practice as well. So people may wonder, why are you doing it that way? There are some legitimate safety reasons why we proceed that way. So.
Yeah. Thank you really so much for walking us through on the real-time situation, because it's totally contradictory, right? Like what we watch in the movies.
Yes.
Like right from the beginning when you said, when you're watching a movie, you want to see who is walking into that, in a heroic situation.
Yep.
All firefighters are heroes, no doubt about it. But in a movie, when they want to see who is entering, and like you have said, I haven't seen in many of the movies like a firefighter entering into the building by crawling.
Yes.
That's when I asked, is that really the case?
I dislike. And anybody that watches movies that have fire scenes in them dislikes watching it with me, because I'll be that person's dead, that person. the heroes have run in and kicked a door, and there's flames licking up the sides of things as they're walking through without their face piece on. It's like, they're all dead. Those that have, unfortunately, we train in this environment, our crews that go through it, they know that there's no way. But as you said, they're paying millions of dollars to that person. They want to see them.
As the technology grows,
yes.
Right? And you have mentioned that not just the victim or the residents are getting, exposed to the great fire, but also the firefighters.
Yes.
They are already into the fire by wearing the gears, right? With the growing technology, is any of the advanced devices that were made, like let's say a drone, for example, or any other advancement that can be used to replace a firefighter, or to help them in advance to minimize the a risk that they will experience in a real fire?
So I don't think there's anything that's ever going to replace a firefighter, because there are some things that you do need to have the tactile, the ability to kind of immediately respond to. We have seen some advancements in technology that enhance our abilities and provide a safer, try to improve the safety for the firefighters that are there. So you mentioned drones and that. So we're tending to see an improvement or an increase in use of those in larger scale events where it may have been challenging for the officer outside, the incident commander, when they're making an assessment of how am I going to put my tactics together to address the situation. They're only able to get a limited viewpoint by either walking around the building from ground level or it takes some time to put an aerial device up and get a view from up top, from an elevated area. A drone device, they can be deployed a lot quicker and give immediate views on things by having somebody to an iPad or a tablet or a laptop. They can get an assessment much quicker, which allows them to adapt the response of how to address the situation a lot quicker. So that's a great improvement there, in that firefighters aren't having to enter a zone to collect that information, or we're getting better information about a hazard that might not have been visible before the firefighters have gone in. So those are great areas of what we that can be of a benefit there. We're seeing significant changes to even just the bunker gear, the equipment that we wear. It used to be, like years even before I started, the bunker gear that you were wearing, you would go into a fire and you could feel when it was getting hot, too hot for it, and you could kind of get out. But as the equipment is improving to keep that heat away from the firefighter, the downside of that is we lose perception of what the heat is around us. And that we're starting to see, there was a time period where they're starting to see firefighters coming out and the visors on their helmets were starting to melt because they didn't feel the heat and know that it was that hot in there, that it could have the impact in them. So some significant changes. And again, they've been in place for a while now, but it's kind of a change. There is the alarms that we wear, the gear that we wear, has a heat monitoring system in that lets us know. It starts an alarm off when the environment's getting too hot to let us know, because we can't physically feel it. It's letting us know you need to get out of here because it's getting too warm for yourself there. So we're seeing some safety aspects there that will allow us to go out. Another one that has been there, but the dynamic and the use of it has changed, is thermal imaging cameras. When they first came on the scene, they were kind of like the old camcorders, and we're dating ourselves here. The video, we were talking about how it's changed. Now everybody has a video camera on their phone, but we used to have to carry around this great big thing on our shoulder to take pictures. The first thermal imaging cameras that came out were that size. That allowed us to see where the growth of fire, or where a seat of a fire was, and be able to kind of change our tactics there. But it was limited in the equipment of what we could take in. Well, it's progressed through technology that now we have thermal imaging cameras incorporated into the backpacks, the air packs that our firefighters wear. So every firefighter going in has a thermal imaging camera with them. So they're able to see that. So previously, where it was one for an entire crew, now everybody's going in. So while they're there, they can continue to monitor their own safety in an environment while they're, aid in their decisions or reporting back to their officers. So while long-winded story, I don't ever feel that firefighters will need to be replaced, but the technology has definitely been a growth and an improvement and a benefit to the firefighters in being able to perform their duties in a more as safe, going back to that, allow them to control some of the uncontrollable and be safe.
In terms of the technology, other than the drones and thermal cameras and whatever, they just aid, right?
Correct.
But in order for the team, for the fire team to walk or attack the fire directly, you need specific equipment like the pumps and vans, trucks and whatever.
Yes.
In Woodstock Fire Department, is there anything? How much advancement did Woodstock saw from the time when you joined and now you're the chief? So in these 30 years, what kind of advancements did Woodstock Fire Department see?
So when it comes to equipment, like the basic kind of at your apparatus, our trucks that are going through the basics of the equipment has more or less stayed the same. So we still use pumpers and we still use aerials, the ladders on the top. The devices themselves are tried and true, tested. They're there. They're what we need. What we're seeing is some improvements in how they operate. So we're being able to see better flow time. So we're able to get more water out of a truck or out of a hydrant onto a scene quicker. We're seeing processes change. So while the equipment itself is still relatively the same, how we use it improves as we understand and as science and technology and research and development continue in how to go through things. We're seeing changes in how we respond to fires, allowing us to use the true tried and tested equipment in a more efficient and in a better way to be able to address things. So I don't think there's areas where we are lacking when it comes to large scale. We keep on top of making sure our equipment is replaced in the appropriate time so that it's new, it's maintained, it has those technological improvements that have come along with it. But at the end of the day, it's an engine. It's an engine with a pump. This is has some water and has the aerial device, the ladder on it. That aspect of it will pretty much always stay the same.
Any automations in the operations?
Not necessarily automation of the things where we can just kind of, off and let you go with respect to that. Because of the nature of what we're dealing with, this comes back to why I was saying I don't think we'll ever replace the firefighters. Automations still, I know AI is improving, growing and what have you, but automations still require programming to a set parameter.
Exactly.
We're dealing, as I said, the uncontrollable. And I kind of repeat that because it's unique. We don't know. Firefighters, through the training that we're able to provide them and the skills and abilities they have, can adapt quickly and to the changing environment and go through that without having to change their programming right off the bat that an automaton would have to. Now, we can set up a truck to continuously spray water, but it's not going to move on its own. A firefighter is there making sure that it's pointed where it needs to go and that aspect of it. So who knows where advancements will go. We've seen lots of technological changes in the past 30, 40 years. Who knows what the next 10, 15, 20 years can have with that or what's in the plan. We're excited about it. We'll see what happens. So.
Yeah. In California, I think the government of the state of California introduced robocops, right? It's just a vehicle, or I think it's in China too, right? The vehicle that just just rides on itself on the road and whatever. And then, so cops, to a certain aspect, can be replaced by AI, but not firefighters.
Well,
right? That is what. So firefighters are more like defense services.
Well, we look at, I think it's, what is the service that's being replaced? I think when we do look at some of the automations and automatons that are in place for certainly with policing, when you're looking at, if it's dealing with traffic flow, vehicle registrations, speeding, that type of thing, there are some aspects that can be automated where you don't need to have that personal interaction. But even within those services, there are some areas where you need that personal touch that's there. Within the fire service, we don't have a lot of areas. We don't sit at the, in a location monitoring flow of traffic or those type of, duties that other services would have that would warrant that. As I said, when the tones go off, when an alarm comes in, it could be any number of things. And we need that personal contact or that personal ability to be able to make that judgment. The same as paramedic, police, and that there are aspects of their job that absolutely they need to have that ability of being able to have the personal touch and modification too. So we won't ever see the full removal of it. Science fiction movies to whatever, who knows? Some movies said that by now we should have had flying cars and stuff like that. We're not there, but we'll see where things go.
So you basically stated about the Woodstock fire station on how it was and how much it improved a lot. And from your own perspective or in your own experience, what are the areas that you believe that there could be improvement? Not just in Woodstock fire station, in general, based on different fire accidents, there could be some ideas, right, that might have appeared in your thought. Can this be automated, or can any idea can be implemented that will reduce the risk for a firefighter for themselves? And if there is any such idea that can be implemented, what would be that in your perception?
When I look at what could the general public, what could people be doing, or what could be put in place to help reduce or improve the safety for our firefighters? The initial thing I'm going to fall back in is my old fire prevention mindset here when we go through. The early detection, we touched base on it, fire alarms, smoke alarms, that type of thing. The biggest thing for the public is making sure they're maintained, they're working. Because how I tie that back, it's not just there to protect the public. When our firefighters arrive on scene, our first duty is to save lives. That's the first protection that we're wanting to have there. if early detection devices aren't operational or aren't present, that increases the potential that there are people trapped in that area that need to be saved. Now, we have to enact that first, try to get people out, while we're also trying to mitigate the hazard or deal with the incident there. So that means we're going to have firefighters going in whose sole purpose is to try to save people. That puts them at an increased risk because they're not dealing with the fire per se as a primary. They're trying to get people out. So by us hopefully reducing the number of times where that has to occur, that people have disabled a smoke alarm or not made sure that they're replaced in 10 years or pulled the battery out because I needed it for something else, by making sure they work so that they go off, or we listen to the fire alarm when it goes off. We've talked about, yes, it might be a false alarm, but please be outside so we know everybody's out. That when our firefighters show up, and firefighters in any community, not just here in Woodstock, when they show up, they're able to know, yes, everybody's accounted for. I don't have to do potentially a rescue. We're still going to monitor for it, but I can immediately go to suppression activities. I can immediately go to dealing with the fire itself or the incident itself. And that improves the safety for the firefighters because they're going in with safety equipment for them to reduce that rather than doing a search and rescue initially. So that would probably be one of the main areas that I would ask people, if we want to look at it's an automation. The alarms automatically go off. We don't have to trigger them. So please make sure that they're going through and going from that. The other aspect comes in is, and I hate putting it this way, don't do stupid things in your homes. It's be aware of what your processes are or what you're doing. Right now, a big topic is lithium-ion batteries.
Yes.
When we go through with that. It's hard to find any home that doesn't have some type of a lithium-ion battery in it, whether it's for a small handheld tool, rechargeable batteries that we charge up. What the most common things that happens there is we leave the battery on the charger. It died. I put it away. I put it on the charger. I'm not going to use that tool for 3-4 weeks, and the battery stays on that charger for 3-4 weeks. They're not supposed to stay that way. Once it's done charging, you should be removing it from. So being aware of things like that with the technology, the improvements. Lithium-ion batteries, great charge, great power on them. That's excellent. There are some challenges and some safety hazards that are there. So that would be another process there. Know what's going on. How can you reduce those risks there? Now, that's just one topic, one thing to go through.
Cool. The topic of policing and paramedics came in already.
Yes.
You already explained about that briefly. So what are when it comes to the skills, firefighters are obviously experts in firefighting. Right? Mm-hmm. What are the skills do firefighters? I would just go with the Woodstock, right?
Yes.
Our people have, like our firefighters have, other than just firefighting training and whatever, right? Dealing with that. Is there any other crisis that our people deal with or are trained in? Let it be dealing with like a kind of a crime situation or paramedic or emergency. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we are trained in or our people are skilled with?
When it comes to situations that could involve criminal aspect with the policing side of things, we leave that to the professionals. We recognize there's a specific skill set for that. That's not the area that we focus in on. We've got a great team here with the Woodstock Police that perform that. We are underneath of a medical tiered response agreement with the Oxford County Paramedic Services, in which our firefighters are trained to be able to provide medical aid and be part of medical responses that are here. Now, that training is in conjunction with the Oxford County Paramedic Services to certain levels of what we provide. We do not provide below the surface or below the skin service other than defibrillation or naloxone. So we cannot administer drugs, that type of thing, anything that's respect to that. That's through the oversight that we have with it. For that, we are able to attend with paramedics there's certain types of calls based on the potential delays that the paramedics may have, or based on the nature of what the call is. There are certain ones that we're simultaneously dispatch, we go through. Others, if it's going to be delayed, we'll attend. I hate calling it, it's a value-added service that we're able to provide through the direction of City Council for the citizens of Woodstock that we give. Now, we have a great working relationship with the Oxford County paramedics there through training, through on-site and that type of thing. And we respect the nature of what their service is. When you look at the United States models, a lot of times you'll see paramedic services are within the fire halls and they share that aspect. That's not something that we're aspiring to, and I don't think I've heard of any fire services within the province of Ontario that are looking at going that way. We don't want to run ambulances out of our station or be responsible for transporting individuals to the hospital and kind of providing en route services. Our firefighters are trained that if the paramedics during transport need an additional resource, our firefighters have in the past, we ride with the paramedics and are able to provide directed care in the back of the ambulance on way to the hospital. So we have that connection, we have that responsibility and that ability there. We're not looking at, I don't want to say we're not looking at enhancing or expanding our services beyond what we kind of currently have, where we're able to provide immediate medical care to the residents of the city of Woodstock in the best way that we can. Paramedics, they are very well trained. They provide an amazing service for it. There are aspects of their job that we're not trying to take it away. We don't want to. No different than they want to suddenly have to be driving around with a set of bunker gear in the back of their ambulance that they have to put that on and help us at it. We are going to be at fire scenes together. We are going to be at motor vehicle collision scenes together, working within our areas of expertise and assisting each other in that. And we've built a very strong relationship with that. So we'll keep to our own areas and we'll respect each other and the specialities that we each have.
So using, going with the common sense or whatever I watch in the movie and basically the nature of work you're talking about in the podcast, right? For a firefighter, I believe, there should be a lot of coordination, right? That is one of the key skill that they need to have. There should be a teamwork.
Yes.
Right. And what other basic skill will make a firefighter as a top responder?
Well, when we look at them, and I think you've hit a couple of two. We've touched about adaptability, kind of be able to turn on a dime and deal with a situation. One of the things I think that a skill that may not be as recognized that's out there, because we train, we do all this. You have a lot of it that's set up. Something that's probably unrecognized is empathy. We are showing up on people's worst days. The emergency services, that's when we show up, whether it's police, it's paramedics, or it's fire. People are losing something, are injured, or are going through a horrible time, and they need you to be there. We are trained to provide that service. We have the skills and abilities and the equipment to be able to assist, but how we provide that service is a big thing. Having empathy towards the individuals that we're assisting and providing that to is, I think, a great skill that firefighters need to have. And they've got that. It's recognizing that, yes, while we're dealing with putting a fire out, this is a family that's potentially losing everything. So recognize that in our interactions with them. We still have a job to do, and sometimes it might feel abrupt because we have to get the safety, we have to deal with that, we have to check all the boxes of what we need to. But as we're wrapping things up and as we're dealing with that, these are people who are losing something, who have had a family member impacted by a call or in some respect. Empathize, have the heart to be in connection with them, for that limited time that we have that connection. That could be the assistance of transitioning from a horrible time for the individual to feel that we were actually there. We helped in many different avenues. And that's a skill that we can't train. That's something that, I think when you come into this type of service, you have that more or less there. You're wanting to help. It's not that I want to be recognized as the hero, that I want to help my community. I want to serve my community. Having the empathy to serve the individuals that we're here for is a big thing. That can be challenging because there are people that don't want to be helped, that don't recognize the assistance that's there, or don't understand the methods that we have to use. Recognize that that's maybe a falling down on theirs. We can work with that, but still have the empathy that's there for them. So I'd probably say, other than the standardized skills, that's probably a big unrecognized skill that I'd like to see.
Yeah, you're always there for people in need in there when required. Thank you for that.
Our crews are very
Thank you
proud
for that. Yeah.
and very, very proud to serve our community, and that's where their heart is. You don't go into the service unless you want to.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Maybe a funny question, no, that made me curious to ask. I watched various movies. Let it be a very sad movie or a crap movie or what not, right? So I have seen. I don't remember what movie was that. Even I don't recollect. What type of movie genre was that? But there was a fire situation where a pet was caught. In a fire or in an apartment. But in general, people used to say, animals have have a sense of having, a danger is coming, and they are the very first ones to go out of the building or just ran far away. Were there any situation for the Woodstock Fire Department to go save a pet?
It's been a wide range. When we're dealing with pets, we recognize the emotional connection that they have to individuals. And again, that's where it comes back to the empathy of the connection through. And we will try to do what we can with respect to it. We do have to look at the nature of our first priority is going to be people, is going to be the occupants, persons. The next step, if we have the ability to, we will recognize pets. We will remove them. We will pull them out. It is to the point where we've had, I can't remember, and I apologize for not being able to remember the organization name, but they have donated masks for pets for oxygen. So if we pull out, we can actually connect oxygen to a mask and provide, ventilation relief for animals as they're coming out. So there is some medical assistance and some training that we have in being able to provide for that. We do have to balance the risk versus the reward, I guess, is the aspect of it. This is sometimes where it comes back to us. We do have a job that we have to do, and sometimes people may not understand that this pet, this animal, may be near and dear to you as the family that are there. We do have to sometimes balance that of what is the risk to the firefighters and the crews of being able to retrieve that or obtain that. That's for the individual. So that's a tricky call to make. Our crew are aware of it. If we can pull animals out, or if we're able to rescue things, they're going to do that because, again, we recognize the importance that those have to the occupants. But at the next step, we do have to look at what is the risk to the individual, that the firefighter that's going in, and find that balance. And then the outcome is, if we're not able to, it falls back to the empathy of recognizing that despite what you feel within our mind that, well, look, I can't put my personal safety at risk to retrieve your pet, but I can't argue that with you. I have to recognize that was my personal decision, but I have to empathize that you've lost something as well that's significant to you, and find the right balance of communicating for that there, because it is significant. They're not called fur babies for nothing, type of thing. When people have it, they have there is a connection there. So it's challenging. We do what we can. We have some skills and abilities and equipment to be able to provide for that if we can do it.
Are there any real life scenarios or situations that you went through
with pets?
Yeah.
Well, I personally haven't had anything with an animal actually, the funny thing is, for me with an animal, the very first, when I started, the only animal I could say I've rescued, and as odd as this will sound, was I rescued a crow from a tree.
Crow?
A crow from a tree. When I had first started on, in an area actually around where Algonquin school area, residents had called for about 2 or 3 days. There was a crow that was just continuously cawing from a tree. It would not leave. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. They called us because, well, firefighters pull cats out of the tree, which we try not to get known for that because cats will come down. But we get there, and sure enough, there's a crow on a branch. So we set up the ladder. I was the junior person, so my captain looked and said, off you go. I grew up, my dad raised and raced pigeons, so I was used to birds. So I climb up, and sure enough, there's a crow sitting on a branch with a kite string wrapped around its leg that had also been wrapped around the branch, so it couldn't go anywhere. So caught it, round wrapped it, and off it flew. Didn't thank me. I was a little disappointed at that. So that it was odd. That's kind of, I rescued a bird from a tree. But we've had, our firefighters have been able to pull animals out and be able to administer oxygen and give them the best opportunity to go through. They have done that. We have utilized that equipment. Again, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I do know that our firefighters have been able to, in some instances, successfully remove and resuscitate. But there have been some instances where we've done all we can. We've had the equipment to, and it hasn't been unsuccessful. And it can hit you just as hard because, again, we're seeing the impact on the individuals from there.
So going from a common world into the fire department, say it could be any person who want to be part of the firefighter, right? Irrespective of the different type of trainings they get, that could be a pretended situation. It cannot be the actual fire. In fact, when they encounter the real incident, it could have caused a different reaction to them. So what various type of injuries or health or mental issues they may experience, if they had, could you talk about that?
So yeah, it can be very different. Going through training in a controlled setting, you think you're prepared, but you're practicing in something that's controlled. And as I've talked about, the real situation are uncontrollable. It can cause some people to freeze up a little bit, but this is where we kind of go through with the training of repetition. We try to get it that our reactions and what we've got almost rely on muscle memory, for lack of a better term. You know what you're going to do, and you fall into business mode. And this is what I've got going through. This is why it's also why we don't task people individually to do something. So you're never going to be in a situation where it is just you with a hose facing off a wall of fire. You've got another firefighter with you. And you can draw strength on that individual. And we all need partners. Many hands make light the work. So by having that ability to be able to draw on them, it can hopefully overcome that maybe immediate trepidation or that immediate hesitation of somebody who's new by partnering them with somebody who is seasoned, who this is a regular occurrence for them, for lack of a better term. That's probably the first aspect of how we address that type of thing, or help the individual be set up for success in that to go through. The other aspect is encourage discussion. So we can train, be prepared for whatever and anything. But in our personal lives, we don't know what happens or what could have happened to an individual outside of work that could change their perception or change how they're going to respond to something. Might be suddenly a new parent, and is now an event that previously involved young children wouldn't have impacted them the same way. Now that they have their own infant, their own child, or that, it will impact them differently and how they respond. So being aware of that and recognizing that I'm allowed this feeling, I'm allowed to feel that way. How do I have conversations, or how do we work to get through that? And us as an organization providing the ability to help them get through that, either through communication or, again, ongoing skill training, realizing that you're not a weaker person because you've recognized a hesitation or recognized something. How do we achieve a way to help strengthen that? So having ongoing communication with individuals to provide that strength, or to reinforce that skill for somebody new and what they could potentially face, reinforces that muscle memory through the continuous training of what we go. I'd say those are probably two key aspects.
Okay. And talking this through, having a conversation, should that be with the peer co-fighter, or should be someone up above their, their current, position they were, or will there be specific counselings they will provide professionally are there any counselings that they will get as well?
So there are a number of resources that are available. So within the organization, so the City of Woodstock, all staff have access to an employee benefit plan or assistance plan. So where we can reach out and you can receive immediate contact with counselors for an initial few sessions to kind of get the ball rolling, to help deal with that. And we've worked with these organizations so that they recognize who are our firefighters. So when a firefighter reaches out, they are put in touch with an initial counselor who has some experience dealing with first responders. So they understand the potential challenges that that person is facing, because it is a unique area from it. So that's one aspect that they have available. Within the County of Oxford, we also have recently established a peer network within the fire service. So dealing with both the volunteer fire services in our county and our professional ones here in the city of Woodstock. We have members of our department and other departments that are trained to be a peer connect. So they're not counselors, they're not providing advice, but they're a voice or an ear to be able to listen to. That is somebody who understands what you're experiencing, understands what you go through, that you can reach out to. And there are a number of them, so that you can kind of, one counselor doesn't fit all, or one person doesn't fit all. You may have to reach out to a couple to find, who do I connect with better, or who do I feel comfortable with speaking through. So those are two of the initial aspects that are available through kind of the employer side or the workplace side. But also within a collective agreement, there are a number of benefits that the members have available to them for. They can reach out personally and obtain counseling through social workers or psychology or that type of thing, where there are paid benefits that provide for that type of service that are available, not only to them, but to their family. Because again, we do recognize that as a firefighter, when you go home, if you're carrying something that impacts you, try as hard as you might to not, it's going to impact your partner or your family that's there, either just through the mood or the way you're responding. You might not be taking it out on them, but you're going to react differently, and that's going to impact them or impact the change in the family there. So they have resources that they can call on and go through there, but all of them rely on the underlying change of seeking out assistance, seeking out counsel is not a sign of weakness. Exactly. Let's remove that stigma that it used to be. I hate referencing it this way. 40, 50 years ago, it was drink until you don't feel it anymore. Self-medicate, find some way of ignoring it. You knew what you were signing up for. You knew you got to be strong enough to deal with this. We are seeing the change, and rightly so, where it's, no, you've chosen to go into this profession. You've chosen to put yourself at risk and be there for your community, but you are still a person. You are still entitled to how you feel. You are entitled to how this impacts you in the workplace. Just because you've chosen to wear this badge does not mean that you are impervious.
Exactly.
And so the topic I like to kind of keep saying is, I want to get it from where it used to be of, what, you have a counselor? Why? To, why don't you have a counselor?
Exactly.
Why don't you have somebody you can off-gas to, that you can share that with, that you can have some assistance for it? Because I want these firefighters and all first responders to have that same smile that they had on their face when they got that call, said, you've got the job. I want them to have that smile when they're able to retire. That, yes, this was a tough career. Yes, I saw some really horrible, some hard things, but I'm okay. I'm able to come out the other side of this feeling I served my community, but I didn't sell myself. I'm still the person I was when I came out. And that's going to come through by removing the stigma of, I need that assistance to be able to get through there. We encourage that for it. And we're seeing that change in the fire service. There is more open conversation amongst them. I know firefighters are talking about, well, I was talking to my counselor about this, or, well, I think this person's great, you should reach out. They're having that rather than feel like I've got to keep this to myself. And our newer firefighters are coming in seeing this is the norm. This is what's expected. And so now it's, I don't have to hide. I don't have to feel that I'm lesser of a person because this impacts me. You're more of a person because it impacts me, because you're in touch with yourself.
Exactly.
You know what impact, and now you're finding a way to be able to assist that, not overcome, but how can I work with that and still allow me to perform what I need to go through there. So yeah, it's a great question, a great setup of what we've got, and we're hopefully seeing a lot of change within that.
So I want to go one step behind that, but I know firefighting the profession is a kind of so it's not a light duty job.
Yes.
What kind of pressure do firefighters have, and what kind of mental issues, not issues, I would not say challenges, will they see on a daily basis or on a regular basis, or maybe some like after 2-3 years of joining or whatever? That's not a light job. It's a
no. It impacts you on many different facets. So I think when we start, people come into this profession because they want to help the community. And we go through all this training, we have all this equipment, and we have this mentality that it starts, and this is part of what we're trying to change, that, oh, I can impact change. I can save you. I can get this taken care of. I can do this. And when we have not a failure of the individual, but when we're not able to save that individual, when we're not able to prevent the loss of a house, sometimes that impacts because they feel that, well, why couldn't I? Why didn't I? Or when we're there at a scene, the members of the public are seeing fire's here, or the first responders are here. They're going to make it back, but they don't realize that we have to look after ourselves too. When we're taking time to set up our equipment and make sure that the building is safe for us to go into, why aren't you in there dealing with this? Why aren't you getting because we don't want to make it that it's 2 or 3 victims because our own firefighters are now at risk. Well, we hear that and they carry that with them. It's the perception sometimes that the public can put on that we know we're doing the job the best that we can with the training that we have, with the equipment we have, without putting ourselves at unnecessary risk. And we have to weigh that with sometimes what the public perceives that we're doing. Well, it took them 5 minutes before they went in. Well, that's because we needed that time to set up for our safety to be able to go through and make sure that we're able to do it properly and safely so that my firefighters can go home at the end of the day too. But they're hearing that, and that can impact you on the mental. Well, am I not doing enough? Am I not serving my community enough? So you carry that with you, and that's a first thing that kind of impacts them for it, that can with some. The flip side is we go to some pretty horrific calls. When we're dealing with things, you can't unsee something. And it's how are we able to process that? And we are all different people. We all process it differently. And our brains react differently to a scene. So something that may have impacted one person on a team of 12 may not impact the others. That doesn't mean that that person is a lesser or shouldn't have been. It impacted them because it impacted them. So they're going to carry that. And, as I said, I don't want to be graphic with things, but when we're dealing with motor vehicle collisions that have an unfortunate result, when we're dealing with fire situations that have an unfortunate result, our firefighters have seen the result of that. We can't scrub that clean. How can we help? What can they do to be able to address that so it doesn't have a lasting impact on them? And unfortunately, we are seeing those growth and those impacts in all emergency services where PTSD is a growing thing, where years of unfortunately not having the resources or feeling that they were able to reach out for assistance or recognize that I'm allowed to feel unwell of this, have gotten to the point where everything that they've carried in that bag, we kind of say that sack of all the bad calls that they're carrying that, well, I don't see it now, but I'm with you. It's split open on them, and now it's all laid out for them to see, and they don't know how to address it, and it hits them hard, and they're off, and they're dealing with some challenges. And as hard as it is, first off, I'm proud of the members who are stepping up and recognizing that they need to have that. They need to deal with something. They need to address their person, because that's a hard call to make. And it's a hard step of I'm not right. Something's not going well with me right now. I don't feel 100%. It's hard to make that call, and I'm proud of any emergency service member who makes that decision and steps up and gets the assistance for it. We're seeing the growth in that, and that's why we're trying to not offset it, but by having the resources we talked about earlier of hopefully not carrying that big bag with them that splits open at 25, 30 years into a career, it gets emptied regularly. So, well, I've been able to address this factor. I've been able to address it so I don't have the larger thing. We're seeing the old school way of doing things is hopefully tapering off, but we're seeing the impact of that affecting our firefighters now, or our first responders now, because the mindset's changed, but not in time to impact those individuals. So there's a lot that they're carrying and a lot of what it can do.
Yeah. Of the various horrible situations that you or the firefighters might have had, in your own experience, was there any experience or very a horrible scene that made you not to sleep or made you to get into a bad dream?
Well, for me personally, I've been fortunate in that I've had resources to be able to go through and with it. We all have the calls of when we're getting to them, it's going to impact potentially of suddenly it's like, this is a little different for me. I think personally, and again, I won't share any of the graphic from our other firefighters because that's their experiences. But I know with me personally, it was when I first became a father. So I had been with the department for less than a year. My first child was born. So it's new. And I did allude to this, suddenly it changes it. And shortly after that, we get called out to a motor vehicle collision, a rollover, where there were 2 individuals in the vehicle that unfortunately English wasn't their first language. They had just been knocked around, so they were a bit frazzled as well. We weren't aware when we got there were car seats in the car. We weren't aware, were there children with them? Because there was only 2 adults that were there. Because of the nature of a language barrier, but also disorientation from the accident, we couldn't get a clear story of whether it was. So I had to go into the vehicle and look to see, are there children there? Well, I'm carrying that. Suddenly it's like, I've just had a child. I know what it is. And now I'm potentially going into a scene where I'm looking for children. Yeah. And then you go through, initially there weren't any, but then I'm realizing this car's on its roof. Is there the potential, the windows have been broken out? Is there the potential now that the child could be underneath of the vehicle? So again, that wave comes back on of, I've got my own child I'm looking out for, what am I dealing with? The good result, there were no children in the vehicle, so there is no horrific end to this. But it's the story of what our firefighters carry in. And I'm speaking from my personal, but that's why I talk about our firefighters each have their own personal lives outside of here, that their experiences are different. And what they're carrying in when they come into work is going to potentially be impacted by the different scenarios that they have. We're dealing with a fire scene at a seniors building. Somebody may have just lost a loved one or something like that. It's going to hit them differently. And we need to be able to have the resources to help them address that and recognize that what they're feeling is real, is allowed. You're human because you have that. It does not make you a lesser first responder. How do we help you if you need that and you feel strong enough to ask for it? Address those feelings and go from there. So I've been fortunate that, in that sense, I've dealt with some things in fire investigation and prevention where I've had to deal with some unfortunate situations from that. So we've all dealt with calls with that. Everybody has their own way of addressing it. The goal is make sure it's the healthy way and having the resources to address them.
With the social media, right, yes. which is being widely used by starting from, from the kids who are at school. And I don't want to mention, at what age they are still using it, Yes. And mobile is currently available at all the hands.
Yeah.
Right. What are the various apps that TikTok users, which the kids can use, to learn for themselves, to learn how or to educate themselves, in an event of a fire, or what are the various social media awareness that is available for a wide variety of people around?
So with Woodstock Fire Department, we've been very prolific in social media. We've tried to, Facebook, Instagram, was Twitter, now X, that type of thing. We try to connect with a lot of it. We do find that the generational change in it. When some of the social medias first came out, let's say, when Facebook first came out, was younger people using it. Now it's the older generation, and the kids are like, well, no, Facebook is for my parents, so I don't use that. Instagram has kind of gone through that as well, where it's a different aspect. So there is the challenge of keeping up with what is the trending social media connection that's there. And you can spread yourself too thin by trying to be on all of them. So we do focus on kind of a primary limited number. So again, for the Woodstock Fire Department, it is Facebook, Instagram, and X, Twitter, that we go through as far as the social media branding. There is the City of Woodstock website as well that we work with the community partners there, and our media team, the media team that the City of Woodstock has is great at being able to get it across. But when we talk to younger ones that are on the hip and new and aware, we find that by connecting with them in the schools, going to where they are or the networks there, and having that face-to-face communication in an area where the social media, the tablet and the devices is encouraged to be set to the side. So we've got a bit more of a direct connection with them, and we don't have to try to, which one are you using? Which one are you using? We can have it. By us getting into those avenues or the locations where that generation is going to be, we've found great success in that, by having what is the age bracket that we're dealing with and tempering our message to that. With our younger crowds in an elementary school, having someone as Sparky come in is a great tool because everyone loves Sparky. We try to get that connect there. They'll listen a little bit more because we've got their attention there. And we're right there with it. We've got that through. We have the big red fire truck out front. They can come out, see it, listen to the firefighters, see them in their gear, have that immediate impact so that we're able to get the tactile. They can touch it. They can hold the hose, spray the water. Suddenly, this is great. This is fun. The message connects with them rather than it just being a 30-second spiel on a reel that now they go on to the next thing of what's the new challenge that I'm supposed to be doing. So the social media aspect of it for the younger group is going to always be a challenge because it does change and grow. But the in-person connections in the areas where they are, that's where we find great success of being able to go to them still and go through. With our older population, and I hate saying the older because I'm on the upper end of the older, but the parents of the younger ones, late 20s, early 30s, kind of in that range, social media is still an avenue that we're able to go because we're not able to connect with them while they're working in their workplace. We're not able to. It's that at the end of the day, kids are in bed, things are a little quieter and I'm going through. We're able to have that little bit of a message that's through there. Maybe they've already heard it from their children coming home. We've got to test our smoke alarms. What are we doing? This fire extinguisher, that type of thing. They're hearing it from their children. They're seeing it from us. It's a dual-pronged message that gets to them that we're able to utilize and strengthen, go through from there. So we are very proud of what we're able to do and how we're able to connect with it. The challenges we'll try to keep on top of. And this is where our educational division in prevention, they keep tabs on it by connecting with other fire services and see what's new and fresh and how we can keep that message fresh so it's not dry. I look back, stop, drop, and roll was a message that's been taught. I remember hearing it when I was knee-high to a grasshopper in an elementary school. It's been a message that kids still hear that. They still, they bring it. They know it. That's from face-to-face interaction. That's from Sparky told us this, that there is a great benefit to having that immediate interaction with your local youth at the fire service. Teens are always going to be our most challenging. Exactly. Because I remember it. As soon as I became a teenager, adults didn't know anything. I knew exactly. I knew everything. Yeah. It wasn't until I was 19, 20 and having to buy things myself and out in the world. So mom and dad knew something. They were smart. What do you mean? Yeah. So they're always going to be the challenge there. We do change our message and how we reach out to them more kind of almost from a workplace culture of looking at avenues of, do you want to be a part of this? This is what we can teach. This is what we can grow. So they learn the messages based on what the options are available to them of as they're making the decisions going into their future, into their work life. They may not choose to go into the fire service, but they've heard some of the safety messaging and what we do, and that will hopefully maybe resonate with them to carry on with their personal life outside of, maybe not in the fire service as a career, but knowledge of what they need to do throughout their life from that aspect, until they get into the, I've got kids and I'm taking advantage of a decompression at the end of the day and I'm catching a few reels or something. So
yeah, I can relate this very much when you said, going directly to the school, elementary school, talking to the kids, at the very early age. My son came from school and he started talking about, there was a fire truck in my school, and this is what they did.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. Reinforces. I'm encouraged that we're hearing it's working. and again, I do look at, when I was on the fire prevention side of things, where I look, the kids were the great ones that could encourage the parents. I could tell people, check your smoke alarms all you want. But until you've got an 8-year-old kid who is telling you every 5 minutes, have we tested our smoke alarms, or every other day, that's going to impact the parents a lot more. Yeah. I'm going to do it just to get you to stop asking me.
This is exactly. This is what we did at school today. This is what the firefighter said.
Yep.
Do you know what you need to do when there is a fire? We need to run out from the home, and you should be in a safe place.
Yep. And sometimes as parents and as older, that's what we need to hear, that message again. Oh, yeah, I know I'm supposed to. But now it's what means a different story to me, because I know what I'm supposed to do, but I need to make sure that my kids do. I need to make sure that my grandchildren do when they come to my house, that type of thing. So it carries a little bit more importance to it, because we forget we're not just looking after ourselves. We're now responsible for some younger ones here. So, and they're reminding us of that. So I'm glad to hear that it worked.
So you are conducting events in the schools to bring awareness about fire safety, but how many of, in terms of people who are planning or willing to join firefighting system or firefighters, how do you think that opinion changed with all the trainings, with all the events that you conduct through social media or in personal, right? Like in whatever avenues, like Christmas Avenue or during parades, right?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So with all the knowledge that you're sharing, how many people are still willing to join, are still thinking to join firefighting team?
We're seeing an increase in it, and I think a lot of it sometimes it is from the beginning, having those connections. People are realizing, children are realizing at a younger age that the fire department is more than just the firefighters. Because it may be that some are like, well, I'm not a big person. I'm not strong. I don't feel I physically, in my head, fit the mold of what I think a firefighter should be. Or maybe I have some physical limitations that I don't think will allow me to be that. By us being in the schools and teaching and educating, they're realizing, well, this person that's in front of me is a firefighter. And we do have divisions that, maybe don't have to have the physical capabilities of going in and carrying 80 pounds of firefighting equipment and, going through, or the individual isn't comfortable. I could never run into a burning building. Well, now they're realizing that, but I could teach, I could educate, I could be a part of this. I like investigating, I like inspecting, or that sort. It opens up a new avenue to them that they can still be a part of the fire service and serve their community, but in a new avenue that they didn't think was available to them. Additionally, when we have our speakers coming out and they're going through, and as the diversity of our community changes and the diversity within our fire service changes, suddenly it's like, I'm seeing somebody that's like me. I'm seeing there's a female firefighter that's here. Yeah. But I always thought firefighters had to be men, because no, we have some very capable firefighters of all genders that are there. We have our different cultures that are being represented as individuals come through, and as the cultural diversity of our community changes, we will see that adapt in the emergency services as well. So suddenly they'll realize, well, this isn't something I thought of, because historically that what may not was an exposure to me, but now I'm curious about this. And we like seeing that, because as we see the growth in the diversity in our community, we need to have that diversification within us to be able to reach and connect with the different areas of our community for that. So hopefully by seeing that, we're starting to impact it. We do see some people come through where for a period of time, and we're hoping to get back to it, we ran a co-op program. So high school students could come and work with us for a period of time. And we have a couple of Woodstock firefighters that were co-op students with us.
Wow.
So that's how they first got their first taste of what we did. They knew they wanted to go in the fire service. They got an experience with the Woodstock, and I want to work here.
Mm-hmm.
And they were fortunate to be able to get on with that department. So we'll see a growth in it. It's a challenging service to get into. One of the first hirings I did, I was looking for one firefighter. I had 1,500 applications for.
Wow,
so
that's
1,500
tough,
people for one position. It does ebb and flow as things go. Last year, we hired 5 firefighters. We had over 850 applications for that. So we are able to get strong candidates that are there from a very strong field, but there's broad avenues that are available. It doesn't have to just be on the trucks in firefighting. It can be in fire prevention, doing investigations, inspections, education. There's a whole bunch of different avenues that are available for people now. So hopefully we encourage lots to look into that.
Yeah. So Ashok was more focusing at the current scenario, right? But
Yep.
Going back 30 years ago, at what point that made you to decide that, I have to be part of the firefighting team?
So for me, my goal when I was coming out of post-secondary was I wanted to give back to my community, as a lot of people do go through that. And the avenue that I was initially pursuing didn't work out the way I had intended, all through my own fault. So when I came back to Woodstock and I was working in the community, I had a number of friends who were in the process of looking at the fire service, and the more I talked with them, the more I learned about it. For me, it was, well, again, this is another opportunity, another area for me to give back to my community, to be a part of something that I knew I wanted to. I didn't feel, I've always been the type that I didn't run away from things. I knew if people needed assistance, that's what I was prepared to go and do. So I prepared myself for that. And I was fortunate, and I feel very blessed, still do, to have been accepted at that time. I wasn't successful my first turn through. 2 other very capable candidates go through, and I work with them now. I got called back in 6 months later, myself and another firefighter, and was successful at that time to be able to join them. It's an excellent opportunity to be able to share. As I said, we're showing up when people have a hard time, to be able to give back in that capacity, to serve our community in an area that not a lot of people will or feel that they can, and to be a part of that. So for me, it's something I always wanted to give back. This has been an excellent opportunity for me to be connected to that, and it fit with the skill sets that I had. So I wouldn't be hired now with what I had then, because the process has changed so much. I know what was on my resume then, but now we have courses, we have schooling that's available to the candidates of what they need to bring. And it's changed drastically, and we have a lot of really strong candidates come through.
So what kind of qualities do you expect from somebody, let's say kids studying in the colleges or coming out, people may be, or the kids may be interested to join, or they already have planned to join firefighting?
Yeah.
Maybe Ashok, if you want to join firefighting.
So with us as a full-time department, so we look at, to apply for our department, you have to have your NFPA certification. So NFPA is a recognized standard within, across the North America from there. So anybody that's going through that, you're certified as a level 1 and level 2 firefighter. These types of certification can be achieved either through colleges. There are some college programs that once you graduate, you have that. There are some third-party organizations that you can do a 2-3 month course, truncated in that, and you can have it done in one fell shot. So that's kind of the base of what you need to have. Your firefighter 1 and 2, and it comes with some associated hazardous materials training there. You have to have a DZ license, be able to drive the type of vehicles that we have. And we require that you are a certain level of first aid trained up to a point and go through. When we do a posting, there's a whole host of requirements there. That's the minimum standard that we have. And that's recognized as being the base kind of for most full-time departments of what you have to have. The benefit of you having those certifications already is it minimizes the amount of time that we have to put you through training before we can put you on the trucks and go from there. So we know you've come in, you've already performed some level of standard that's there to go through. Now, one thing you will note, there isn't an age range with respect to that. We do look at kind of what's the benefit versus the investment versus the return of what we've got. And life experiences will carry through. Somebody who is just coming out of post-secondary or secondary school is not going to have the same life experiences as somebody who has been working for 10 years and kind of goes from there. So while we say you have to have these minimums to be looked at, during the process of interview, we do look at, well, what do you bring to the table? Because I know what we can teach. I know what we can encourage you or what we can provide you. But I'm not looking for an empty shell for me to fill. Exactly. This isn't old school military where we beat you down to we want to mold you the way that we are, and that's who we're looking for. We're looking for, well, what are you bringing to us? Because everybody has skills that they're going to bring through. And these can be highlighted at many different levels. I've told people before, it's like, you've worked in construction in a few summers while you're going to school or post-secondary or what have you. Best way to understand how a building's going to burn down is know how it was built. Mm-hmm. You want to get into fire prevention? Know what the safety standards were from that. Highlight the skills that you've had and what is it that you bring. I've taken, organizational training on coaching levels. Well, I know how to speak to people. I know the benefit of teamwork. I know all these. These are all skills that individuals will have that they're going to bring in that are very hard for us to teach. But we can enhance, though, once you've got them. So it is looking at what is it that you, as an individual, so Ashok, what do you have that you feel would benefit us in addition to the skills and the requirements that we have from there? And we review that because, we're going to learn from you as much as you're going to learn from us.
True. So when you have stated like for one position there were like thousands of applications.
Yes.
So what does that mean for us, like in this podcast? Is that giving us information like there are too many people who are already having qualification to be a firefighter? Is there enough, is there enough positions that are going to open up, in the current locally, or should this certification can be used to be part of anywhere around, in and around Ontario or somewhere, in Canada?
So the Firefighter 1 and 2 certification is very specific. It is to firefighting. Like I can't go to a factory and say, if you don't have a fire service, it doesn't carry the same weight. Firefighting is a challenging profession to get into because there are lots that like to get, that would love to be a part of this. There are, with the college programs and the third-party programs, there are more options or availability of being able to achieve that than there were 30 years ago, type of thing. So it can be discouraging for individuals to look at. What it's going to come down to for the individual is, where is it that I want to be a firefighter? And how badly do I want to be a firefighter? So if somebody is, well, look, you know what? My life is set up in this area. So it's Woodstock or nothing. Well, you've restricted yourself, because we will have replacements. We will have retirements. We will have new positions. There will be hiring, but it is a challenging process. It is very competitive. Whereas if it's, well, I just want to stay in southwestern Ontario, well, that opens you up to more departments that you can be available to, and you can start applying with and go from there. It can be anywhere in Ontario. It can be, you will be restricted based on what you want to do and where you want to go. I do caution people of, don't sell out your life just to be a firefighter, because I don't want it to be that somebody says, well, I'll go anywhere to be a firefighter, and suddenly they're in, far north Ontario. They hate winters. And they don't want to be dealing with primarily wildland fires. But I'm a firefighter. So suddenly their dream is now tainted because they're away from family. They're in an area that they didn't want to. Exactly. So that spoils the positive for them. So don't apply to areas that you don't really want to be in. So when I say, don't sell out the desire to be a firefighter and you've sold your wishes or what you can't do, because it's all or nothing. But then if there are some that are like, well, I don't care. I'll go to Yukon to be a firefighter because this is what I want to do. This is my goal. I want to serve a community. And if that community is up there and they need it, then I'm going to do that. So find that balance there. Recognize it when you're moving into that. And it may wind up being that it's, well, no, I only want to be in Oxford County. There's only one full-time fire department here. It's going to be extremely competitive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't go to this profession, or maybe I just recognize that I need to have another full-time job while I'm hoping for this one, and roll that dice. We would love to have people that want to be firefighters, have everybody that wants to be on there, but we only have a set number of positions that are through. Now, avenues that are available, and I can't speak because we don't have them in Woodstock, but there are a number of volunteer fire services in the county of Oxford. Now, they have different restrictions about where you have to live and what your availability is, but those are options where, I know it says volunteer, you do get paid for the time you are at a call or during training, but you have another career that you're doing and you do this as well. You can reach out to the fire chiefs in those areas and find out what are the restrictions, what is it that they need, and what are they looking for people. They do regular recruitment processes too. And that opens up another avenue. It does not close you off from still applying to full-time fire departments. In the past 2 years, we hired 13 full-time firefighters. 11 of them were with a volunteer fire service previously. We don't make them quit. Some of them still are with it. It's up to them. But that gave them the skill and ability of suddenly, well, I'm at a fire. Is this really what I want to do? Mm-hmm. So we talked earlier about that pause of suddenly, this, in training it looked easy, but now it's new. They were able to get that experience before they gave up a career to join something. And suddenly it's like, but I can't go back to that job. I'm getting that experience now. And they have that option there. So that's what I would encourage if you're curious. Look at the avenue and go from there.
Yeah. So you mentioned about different weather conditions, right, or climatic changes. Mm-hmm. Let's say in summer we are talking about wildfire or getting different calls for false alarm, or could be a real incident. Mm-hmm. How significantly the number of calls reduced during a snow season or a winter season?
So it does change a bit. Obviously, our outdoor calls are down. What happens with a lot of times with the cooler weather, we're spending more time indoors. Our furnaces are kicking in. Mm-hmm. We have an increase of sources of ignition. So wood stoves, furnaces that maybe aren't maintained. But by being indoors, we're not barbecuing maybe as much as we were. So we're cooking in the kitchen more often. So we tend to see an increase of residential fires during that time. The other flip side happens to be that winter months, we tend to get a bit more seasonal celebrations. Families are getting together, at the different times. So you have more people in the homes and going on with that. So you'll see more of our calls will come into that aspect. The challenges that we could potentially face in a winter month, it's, well, are our fire hydrants buried? Can we find them? Are they? Mm-hmm. Some areas get a lot of snow and it's really hard to keep them clean. So that's why we do encourage residents, if you have a fire or a hydrant in front of your house, shovel around it, keep it clear for us because we'll need it. So we have a challenge of that when responding to the calls. In a snowstorm, with ice storm, can we get our trucks there quickly in a safe manner? Are the roads built up with snow and we're parking on the road? Can we safely get close to the locations and that? How are we able to get our hoses around a call that there's lots of snow? The fence may be, a gate may be closed in now by snow and we can't get through it like we can in the summer. So it presents a whole host of different challenges based on the time of year of what we're looking at. So,
yeah. So as you mentioned, you were born and brought up here in Woodstock.
Yes.
So you have seen this county, growing or expanding from for past 50 years or no?
Yes. It's drastically different.
So since then, was there always one fire station?
So when I don't have memory of when I was little, but when I started, we were two stations where we are the same two stations that we are now. The Woodstock Fire Department initially started with a single fire station. So when I look back, we started in 1881 is when we became a fire department. It was horse-drawn wagon and we responded out of the back of City Hall, which was right now, the City Hall at that time was the Woodstock Museum. So we responded out of the back of there. They built Perry Street Fire Hall, which is now a medical building. It's across from the movie theater. That's there. That's the fire hall that was there. Still horse-drawn wagons. Farmer was one of the original horses that we had, was the name of it. So we responded from a single location at that time. As time went in the 70s, when General Motors, the warehouse that's on Parkinson Road came, that's when the Parkinson Road station was built. So it was at that time in the 70s that we moved to 2 stations. So one downtown and then the Parkinson Road station that is there. As time proceeded, we're talking now into, I believe it was the I want to say late 80s, early 90s. I can't remember if it's 89 or 91, one of the two, Van Ave, somewhere around that time. The Perry Street Arena Hall needed a lot of repairs. And at the time, it was cost prohibitive to do the repairs on such an old building for that service. And it was just also, as equipment was growing, hard to kind of store. So that's when they moved. They actually had to close that station before we had a second station built. So for a while, our firefighters were responding from a mobile home on James Street, where the Board of Works and Engineering Department are, while they built the Van Sittert Ave station. So once the Van Sittert Ave station was open, they relocated there, and we've operated out of those 2 stations to now. We recently had a fire master plan go before council on May 1st of this year that has recommended, and we are already moving towards, but a 3rd fire station for the city of Woodstock, which will allow us to improve shorten our response times of getting through, improve the amount of firefighters that we have herein. So as the community continues to grow, our emergency service needs to continue to grow, and we've got a roadmap set up for that now as well. So
obviously, like you said, when the community grows, having a new fire station nearby, it is going to help to reach the location faster.
Absolutely.
Right. And how many number of fire stations or how many number of fire trucks that are really needed for this size of community, and are there enough trucks that are currently available?
So right now, when we respond, if we respond to, depending on the nature of a call, so a medical call, depending on which station is closest to, we'll send one truck to that with firefighters on it. Motor vehicle collisions, it depends on how it comes in. Could be 1, could be 2, could be 3 trucks. Any fire type of call, we have 3 trucks that respond. So we have 3 frontline apparatus that head out, and we respond with a minimum of 10 firefighters is the way that we go through. So we have a good amount of equipment that's there. We also have reserve apparatus. So we have, each of our stations has an extra truck that's there. So if we need more firefighters on scene, or the fire service that's responded is going to be tied up or busy with that call for longer than they think, we can do a callback where we have off-duty firefighters that are available. They come in and they'll now staff those trucks that are at the call, so we can continue to serve the community with that through there. When we go to a 3rd station, there will be an increase in both firefighters and an additional apparatus to staff that station from there. We would still at that point probably respond with, we'd go to a minimum of 12 firefighters, 3 apparatus, 3 fire trucks, 1 from each hall, but then we'd have additional resources available to us based on the number that are on duty and what type of calls that are there. So we're doing well. The equipment that we carry on it, you always try to provide for the most that you can. You try to provide for everything, but you again, it's uncontrollable. We do the best we can with what we've got. So we have to be respectful of the budget as well. It's not a bottomless pit. So,
exactly. So as a chief of Woodstock Fire Department, is there a message that you would like to convey to the Woodstock community or the people? Citizens of Woodstock, basically.
Absolutely. So I guess in a vein, I always kind of put it in, I don't like quoting, I'm a movie guy, but help us help you.
Exactly.
So we are prepared. We have a dedicated staff that are ready to respond to any type of call. What we ask is for our community members to help us keep you safe. So it goes back to in your homes, make sure you are practicing fire safety in your homes. Working smoke and CO alarms. Easiest, best thing to make sure that you're covered in that. It allows us to know that you've had as early a detection as possible so that you're outside and we're able to address you're safe so we can deal with the incident there. Practice your fire safety in the home. Watch what you cook. Be present with what other fire hazards are around. If you're a smoker, smoke outdoors. Make sure smoking materials are out. These type of things. Practice all of these safety messages, and also practice your escape plan. How do I get out if I need to? How does anybody visiting my house, are they aware of how we get out? So help us help you by practicing fire safety in your home, in your workplace. And that's the underlying message that we always have. If you have questions about any of them, we have dedicated staff at the fire service that are happy to help out. Reach out through a phone number, 519-537-3412. You can reach us there for our fire prevention team. Email, social media, touch base with us. Look for Woodstock Fire Department. Make sure you're looking up the Ontario one, because there are other Woodstock Fire Departments in New Brunswick and in the States and all that. Make sure you look at the photos. Make sure you see us on there. But reach out to us through social media. We are here to help. You are not troubling us. It's what our job is. It's what we want to do. We would rather you've bothered us, in quotes, by getting the information, rather than us having to come on your worst day.
Exactly.
So please help us help you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
I really appreciate you including me on this. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, sure.